What is going on, YouTube? Andrew Miller from Hook'emHeadlines.com coming back at y'all today with another commitment breakdown. Definitely the biggest one that we've done on this channel, at least since it started last fall. Arch Manning committed last summer, so we didn't quite have the YouTube channel up and running at that point. But yeah, earlier today, Texas landed five-star Duncanville edge rusher Colin Simmons, #1 rated edge rusher recruit in the nation in the 2024 class, also the #1 rated recruit out of Texas in the 2024 class. In both the 247 Sports Composite and On3 Industry ranking. We were on site, or at least I was on site today at Duncanville High School at the gym to cover Simmons' commitment. It was a pretty crazy event. You know, I'll mention this a little bit later in the video. I did a segment with Tarek LaCours from Hook'emHeadlines.com as well. He and I talked a little bit about the impact of the commitment and what's next for Texas recruiting. As always, I do the timeline if you want to jump ahead to that. But yeah, this was the craziest in-person commitment that I've covered, or commitment ceremony that I've been at. I've been at around 5 or 6 now, if I'm thinking back. And yeah, this was by far the biggest. You know, it was the first day of school at Duncanville High School as well, so definitely a crazy atmosphere there. But you know, you had the bleachers pretty filled up for the commitment announcement, and you know, plenty of media there as well. But the amount of attention that's been on Simmons here the last few months, you could really feel that. It seemed like he was a little stressed out about the whole process, but you know, it did stop him from pulling out a little bit of trickery. If you know any of y'all were watching the commitment ceremony live or the announcement live, you saw Simmons. You know, he originally brought Caden Durham over. Caden Durham a few moments prior had committed to LSU, so he had the LSU hat on, and then he walked over to Simmons. Simmons put the LSU hat on, and then took that off, put a Texas hat on. Ended up taking that off. His little brother had a Texas hat that he ended up putting on when he announced his commitment to Texas. And so, you know, this is a recruitment that Texas has had marked as like a must get for the last few months. You could tell literally that it went right down to the wire, that this was the sort of thing that was going to be as hotly contested as it gets. It still will be. You know, LSU is not going to give up on this recruitment. They're still going to recruit through the finish line on signing day in December. But yeah, anyway, you know, for these videos, I usually like to take a look at, you know, how the recruitment went, you know, how the recruit ended up at Texas, strengths, weaknesses, taking a deeper look at Simmons' game, and then talking about his projection and fit at Texas. Yeah, I talked about some of the backstory to his recruitment, what the announcement was actually like today. You know, I do want to mention that just the roles that some of the different Texas coaches played in this recruitment. Jeff Banks, for one, it was reported today that he was actually the lead recruiter for Simmons. You know, that lines up. He's a guy that was a part of a bunch of big recruitments at Alabama, has helped Texas win a couple big, or more than a couple, quite a few big recruitments. But, you know, it just really goes to show how valuable of a recruiter he is for this staff. Also, Sark played a major role in this recruitment. Heard a lot today. There was a report from Steve Wiltfong that spoke volumes from an Austin source, talking about how Texas isn't winning this recruitment without the level that Sark had. You know, just in constant communication with Simmons. You know, really played a meticulous role in, you know, helping show Simmons the plan for him on the 40. You know, they're in a post-commitment interview. Simmons mentioned that one of the big factors for him, something that really sold him on Texas, was how Texas laid out the plan for him to graduate in 3 years, you know, get his degree, go to the NFL, and, you know, just really hit home to show, okay, this is the place for you. This is the place where you can be able to set up your future, and set up your family as well. And so, you know, Sark did a fantastic job here. And then, obviously, Pete Kwiatkowski, I mean, he's the guy that's going to be scheming up Simmons along the defensive front. You know, it seems like from a schematic perspective and a fit at Texas, Simmons really likes what PK brings to the table for him. You know, one thing that stuck out to me, I tweeted this out earlier today, but I heard Simmons mentioning during the media Q&A portion of the ceremony that you know, it really caught his attention to see PK scheming up the defense against Alabama last year, that they looked so good. He also specifically mentioned that he just likes PK as a play caller. Overall, it seems like the staff did a fantastic job here. I mean, obviously, to win this recruitment over LSU, given how much Simmons does like, you know, Brian Kelly and the Tigers and just all that they got going on there in Baton Rouge. But just being able to win this recruitment is massive for Texas heading into the SEC. So yeah, I want to go ahead and touch on some of the strengths and just talk about Simmons' game a little bit more. And then if you want kind of a deeper dive version of this breakdown, as always, I'll put the write-up that I did breaking down Simmons' game and his commitment in the description below. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it. So Simmons is a 6'3", 225-pound edge rusher. As I mentioned earlier in the video, at least I believe I did, he was extremely productive at Duncanville last season. I would expect the same from him again this fall. Over 30 tackles for loss, 22.5 sacks. I believe it's around a half dozen forced fumbles the last 2 seasons. Just an incredibly explosive, productive edge rusher. He's not the tallest edge rusher that you'll see. He's 6'3", but he has a good wingspan. At 225 pounds, he also has a lot of upper body strength, but really the staples of his game and his skill set are just his quick twitch, his explosiveness, and his bend off the line of scrimmage. His burst off the line of scrimmage is something that will absolutely blow you away. I'll put some B-roll on this. Just it's really fun to watch his highlights. He's just a menace in the backfield. From a technical perspective, he's got a lot of flexibility. I mentioned the bend in the knees and the hips. He's got good hands, quick hands. I mentioned the upper body strength, good pad level approach to get the proper leverage too. He's got a multitude of tools that he can use to beat opposing blockers in one-on-one matchups. But a lot of times he doesn't really need a lot of those tools because he's just able to get past them in the blink of an eye, just get around them. And so, he just checks so many boxes as an elite pass rusher. From a playmaker and run defense perspective, he's also someone that's going to be a major difference maker at Texas. I saw this from 24/7 Sports describing his game, that he targets the ball really well. I mentioned the 6 forced fumbles, around that in the last 2 seasons at Duncanville. He's just someone that explodes to the ball carrier and gets home more often than not. Given how fast he is, how good he is at targeting the ball, and just how much pop he has in the pads, he's someone that is going to force a lot of turnovers at Texas. He already has for Duncanville the last 2 seasons. And so that is going to be a huge difference maker for Texas. Getting that guy that can not only rush the passer and get home effectively, but also force some additional turnovers. Obviously, that's going to be huge to have along the defensive front. And then as a run defender, a lot of the tools that make Simmons such an effective pass rusher also what makes him a high-level run defender. He's a guy that, again, that explosiveness, the ability to locate, target the ball carrier, but also his change of direction, his agility. He's just incredibly rangy and quick. Once he gets into the backfield, whether it's facing a scrambling quarterback or running back, more often than not, you're going to end up on the ground. He's an incredibly gifted defender. I think his staple is obviously his pass rushing ability, but I don't want to slight his ability in run defense either, just because he's someone that can be such a disruptive run defender, and again, someone that can just make a huge difference, create a lot of negative plays. The last thing I wanted to mention among his strengths, just at a high level, he's a very aware defender on passing plays. And so even if he doesn't get home, he's still someone that can disrupt the passing lanes. So, the word disruptive just means a lot for his game in multiple ways, on passing plays and pass defense. So, overall, he's so explosive, he's so polished, he's such a difference maker in so many different areas. I said I wanted to cover his weaknesses earlier in the video. I don't really think there are many. Even watching kind of the down plays for him, there's not much you can nitpick. He's got a good motor, so it's not like he's going to give up on the play or anything like that. The only thing that I really pinpointed in my article is like an area of improvement, if you will, for Simmons is the need to add weight, to add some muscle mass. Like I said, he's 6'3", 225 pounds. I think the projection for him, I'll dig more into this later, first projection and fit, but I do think the projection for him at Texas is at the buck position. And so, buck, you probably want him up around like 245, 250. I think Barron Sorrell's playing around 250 right now, and he's 6'3", 6'4". so similar height. Simmons can put on another 20, 25 pounds. I think that's really going to benefit him in being able to set the edge more effectively. Like, that is one, I guess, as a run defender, that's probably what's keeping him more at a good level instead of being like a great run defender, is adding some of that weight, getting a little bit of a stronger lower base, and that's probably going to be the thing that I'm watching the most for him to work on in the next, I'd say, year, 18 months, somewhere in that range. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about his projection at Texas. I mean, let's get this out of the way. He's going to be an immediate starter, an immediate impact player. There's no doubt about that. But, I think it's fair to talk about his expectations, what his more than likely 3 years will look like at Texas. The goal for him is 3 and out, is 3 seasons and then go to the pros. So Simmons is going to come in and, like I said, probably start at the buck position right away. I would assume that next season he will be starting opposite then senior edge rusher Barryn Sorrell. That's going to be a pretty lethal combination, given Sorrell's ability to set the edge in run defense, and his developing pass rush ability, and just his maturity and overall defensive awareness. And then just obviously given Simmons' explosiveness, just ability to terrorize opposing quarterbacks. But also you're going to have Anthony Hill in that linebacker core, and you're having a plethora of other talent along the defensive line, some real big bodies. Guys like Sadir Mitchell, DeAndre Robinson. I don't know if he's going to return, but if Byron Murphy does return for another season at Texas, you're going to have a lot of stout guys along the defensive front. DeAndre Robinson and Alex January, 2 big humans that are committed to the 2024 class with Simmons. I think those guys would have combined like 650 pounds. So, you're going to have a lot of guys that are going to present teams a lot of problems in the SEC next year and beyond. You really give PK that elite edge rusher that he needs to let the rest of his playbook and the rest of his schemes fully develop. And, Texas has had to put a lot of pressure I think they've had to put a lot of pressure the last couple of seasons on, guys like weak side linebacker, DeMarvion Overshown having to take on so many roles as a hybridized edge rusher, also covering out in the flats, get hats to the football, things like that, but also, at times having to use your boundary safety to come down, help and run defense, or in the pass rush, or use a corner blitz, whatever that be. So in terms of expectations for Simmons, heading into his freshman campaign, in my article I mentioned Will Anderson and Harold Perkins, 2 big-time SEC outside linebacker edge rusher types that are definitely valid comparisons for Simmons, just from physical tool perspective, athleticism, pass rushing ability, all that stuff. Both Perkins and Anderson registered, it was around high single digits for sacks, double digits for tackles for loss. I think that's a valid expectation for Simmons in his first year in the SEC. I still think that's going to have a huge impact on this defense if he is able to get 7-8 sacks, anywhere between a dozen and 15 tackles for loss. Texas hasn't had a guy since Joseph Osai that's registered 8 sacks in a single season. Barryn Sorrell had like 5.5 or 6 last season, and I think he potentially could reach that mark this fall. And so I think for Simmons, the expectations could be next year that he could come in and be a potential freshman All-American type performer, but also all conference as well. So expectations are obviously going to be high for him right away, but that's because he is such an esteemed talented edge rusher. The highest, I believe, is a pure edge rusher, the highest rated edge rusher recruit in program history, at least in the modern era of recruiting rankings. So anyway, that's pretty much it for this commitment breakdown. Like I said, this was obviously a huge one for Texas, but also, Tarek and I after this talked a little bit about some of the impact that this could have on Texas and what it means for recruiting moving forward. Second highest rated overall behind Arch Manning. So, it kind of puts things in context in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You can go ahead. What are your? Obviously big thing, but what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I sent out a tweet when he committed that said, Colin Simmons to Texas, let's go, but I spelled go the way that LSU spells it. So that was pretty fun. I think that Sark getting Colin Simmons is as big as him getting Arch Manning, because this has been a position that Texas has not been able to recruit at the highest level in a long time. Now, we have had good edge rushers in the last 10 years, primarily Joseph Osai, and I think Barron Sorrell is outperforming his ranking. But you haven't gotten, the Will Andersons, the Dallas Turners, uh, those types of guys that can really
Harold
be difference
Perkins.
makers. Harold, don't bring that one up.
Sorry. Wait, I'll bring it up because we got a victory over LSU today, so it feels a little bit bittersweet.
Yeah, it does. I mean, the sad thing is we probably could have gotten Harold Perkins if we hadn't gone 5-7, but I don't know if that won't happen. Anyway, so uh, it's big. It's also big for Sark to be closing down Dallas, not closing it down, but putting a strong imprint there, because that's going to be very important going forward. There's a lot of talent in Dallas, lots of talent in Houston, lots of talent in the Austin area, but you got to be able to pull those guys off. And the last staff wasn't able to do that as much, but Sark doing it, showing that uh, at least on the recruiting trail, he's not a guy we need to doubt. He's gotten so many guys. Um, Speaking as far as fit, if we'll go into that, I think he'll be a terror on the edge opposite Barron Sorrell. I'm assuming that Barron will stay one more year, and or across from Burke, whoever, doesn't matter. The guy's going to get on the field early and often. He's just that kind of player. He's got good length, got good power, and his first step is just unfair sometimes. I don't want to put this on him. He does remind me a little of Will Anderson, but he's certainly like build and things like that. I think he's got a lot of Will Anderson in him, and he's Dunk. He's led Duncanville to a state title. It's not easy to do at the 6A level. So, and he's trying to get another one, and more than that, what he'll do on the recruiting trail, he's trying to get some more guys to come with him. Mike Roach of 247 mentioned that as soon as Simmons committed, that some recruits were reaching out to him saying this helped their recruitments as well. There's always, I think, there has to be that first guy to show like, hey, I'm really buying into this, and then other guys will follow suit. But no one wants to be that guy. It's like, no, it's like you do it for yeah. It's kind of a Mexican standoff, but now the standoff is over because Colin Simmons has pulled the trigger on LSU and just killed them and decided to come to Texas.
I figured there was going to be some kind of trickery that he was going to pull off here because, he pulled out the SMU hat after he had gotten his setup for Miami.
He's a troll.
Yeah. And I mean, I think a lot of people, I'm sure any Texas fans that follow recruiting were watching the ceremony. He pulled off that weird hat thing where he had Caden Durham come over. Caden Durham had committed to LSU a few moments prior, put on the LSU hat, and then put that down, then put on the Texas hat. And then he had his little brother. I remember he was handing something to his little brother, like maybe 5 minutes before his announcement. And I didn't really think too much of it, but yeah, that was the hat that he had eventually ended up putting on. But there was definitely some like cautious optimism from everyone in the media there. Barron Sorrell is better at. I think we all know that he's a better run defender. He's better at setting the edge than he is as a pass rusher. I think he's developing into a good pass rusher. I think there's a good chance that he could lead Texas in sacks this year. But I just like thinking about the idea of what Texas can do with like a hybridized pass rusher in a way, and Anthony Hill. I think his long-term future is a linebacker now that we have Colin Simmons. But you got Sorrell opposite Simmons, and you also got Hill back there. That's a hell of a trio that's going to be very formidable in run defense and pass rush.
And this is all about Simmons today, but Sark's not done, right? When after Simmons committed, he was on the phone with Danny Okoye. So it's kind of like, hey. He's like, don't worry, we need you too.
He understands the importance of these edge rushers. Yeah,
you're not gonna win in the SEC if you don't have any edge rushers. It's that simple.
I know one of the people that was engaged watching this, or one of the recruits, was Zina Umeozulu. I think that I think he's going to start feeling the pressure a little bit to jump in this class. I know that his brother's playing time matters a lot to him, but like I think he's close to committing if Texas can get, one more push over the finish line with him.
I think so too. I noticed that Micah Hudson was also on the commitment video.
Yep, and
So
Ryan Wingo.
um,
Yeah, very true. There's two more things here that I want to ask you, Tar, before I let you go. I know you got to
go
get
ahead.
going here soon. First is, what do you think the odds are that Micah Hudson's recruitment follows a similar trajectory to Anthony Hill's in the sense that, what if Tech, let's say they have another
I,
early.
I don't think that's the right comparison. I think the right comparison is Evan Stewart.
Okay, flipping the script a little bit, where maybe we could play the role of A&M and Tech.
Well, it's more of like I don't think I'm not sure Micah Hudson knows what he wants to do. I think he feels comfortable at Tech,
Yeah.
but there's also the feeling of, okay, but is this really where I want to be? Am I really going to win here? Am I even going to be on TV that much? It's just like, okay, face it, college football is becoming the NFL. There's two conferences. If you're
Yeah.
not playing in those two, it's like people will know about you come playoff time, but that's about it. So, and I mean that matters to kids to be playing against the best. That's how you become better.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that Hudson didn't visit A&M, I think that's it. Now, if you follow the visit pattern, all the evidence says Hudson will eventually commit to Tech.
Yep.
But the fact that he hasn't yet, that he keeps like appearing, it's kind of like it's like, yeah, but I kind of want to do this. So, I'm guessing, and this isn't that wild of a conjecture right now. I think we're 23 days until the season starts for Texas.
Yeah.
I'm guessing he's not going to be committed by the time the season starts. So that probably tells you he's not going to commit until December. That's usually what happens. So
Yeah.
if that's the case, then it comes down to does Duworthy and A.D. Mitchell and Jordan Whittington and Isaiah Nair have the type of seasons that make Hudson say, you know what, I do want to do that. I want to do Texas after all. So
Yeah.
that's my thought.
That's fair. Last question I have for you, and then I'll let you go. So we got Simmons in the boat now. Obviously, he's an immediate impact player. I don't think like his skill set really needs like a ton of analysis right now, just because like I think the big topic is the impact his commitment has on the future of the program and the rest of the class for 2024. You say 1, 2, 3, how many ever players? Who are or who is the must-get recruit in the 2024 class now that we have Simmons in the mix?
I'll give you three. I think Brandon Baker, the offensive tackle, because you're losing Christian Jones. And although I'm very high on Cam Williams, you can't have enough elite tackles, just like you can't have enough good edge rushers. There's a reason that tackles are drafted in the top 5 every year, and lots in the first round. So you need those. Following that, I think that I would put Kobe Black there, and an elite lockdown corner who's like, in a way, they're mirror images of Colin Simmons is like the perfect edge rusher for PK system, and Kobe Black's the perfect corner for PK system too. So that's one. And then the other, I would say, I do think you're going to split one of Zina Umuzulu and Daniel Koye. I don't think Texas would get both unless, though if they did, I mean, you have to really tip your hat to that. That's just incredible. But be very happy with if you have Simmons and Umuzulu or Okoye, that's a great haul either way. But the other person I would say is I would say Hudson.
Hudson. Okay. No McKinley? I don't know if you.
Oh, the thing with McKinley is, I think he's everywhere worth a 5-star rating, but Eric Meline pointed something out. He's a lot like Colin Simmons and that worries me a little bit. So, and he's not the type of he's not like the huge guy like Severe Mitchell, who at the time of this writing is actually okay. He came back to practice, so the MRI came out clean. So yeah, I get. But the thing is, this is why I'm going to say that. I think that the tackles that we have are pretty good, and that you can maybe, and with Trill and other things, I think you'll be fine there. The problem with wide receiver is you're losing probably all three of. You're obviously losing Whittington, Worthy, and I think A.D. Mitchell are both going to go pro. So you're losing all three starters. So you need to replace those with elite talent. So you need guys who you would feel comfortable day one. This guy can get in there and start. Obviously, you have Jonte Cook, you have uh, DeAndre Moore. I think Ryan Niblett's going to be good too. But Sark's offense falls or dies with good receivers, so they're
Yeah,
almost as important as the quarterbacks in his system.
yeah, because I think you can get Wingo and Hudson in this class and realistically see them contribute early because of the amount of turnover.
You got Hudson and Wingo. Then let's see if you got Hudson, Wingo, Kobe Black, McKinley, Wardell Mack, Zina.
That's not going to happen. I'll go ahead and say that. It'd be great,
got,
but it's not.
No. Well, the thing is, it depends on the season that you have. If you win 10 or 11, I think yeah maybe. But Wingo, I feel like might stay in Missouri.
Yeah, take the Luther Burden route. Yeah, I would agree. I think that you can get 60% of them if you have a good season. You close out strong. That's mine.
We'll see with McKinley. It's September 1st, so that's what 2.5 weeks away.
Wardell Mack potentially in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
And then Kobe Black. The feeling I get with him is that he's going to drag out this recruitment a little while. I think my top three are. I'm going to put. I do think McKinley is probably number one. It's weird too because I think if we get McKinley also, that he's actually, in my opinion, the second most important defensive lineman in this class, potentially the third, because I think January and Robinson are the two type of defensive linemen we need in the SEC, and I think they're both incredibly underrated. I think they're both like top 100 type talents, especially Robinson. I don't know how he's like a low 4-star for most of the major recruiting services, but second, I'll probably say Kobe Black. We need to get those in-state corners that are just elite. And third, I'll put Brandon Baker. I think that, if we are able to slot out Christian Jones and, like you said, just bring in Baker, that's a perfect scenario at offensive tackle. So, you got anything else, Tark, before I let you go?
No, I just hope Longhorn fans enjoy today and then get ready for the season is. Let's see, 22 days tomorrow, is it?
Yep.
Yeah, so it's right there. So let's hope that we don't have to pull out the Michael Scott gift that says I'm ready to be hurt again. So,
Yeah, well, and stay tuned for everyone. Tark, I know we'll cover this before, but I'll be out at SMU on August 25th for the Duncanville South Oak Cliff game. So that's going to be,
that's right.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one. Now we got 2 commits along that defensive front, and then also be fun to watch DK Moore. That's the must get right now in the 2025 class, I think.
So, I think he'll be a Longhorn. I'm not worried about him.
Yeah, he did post a picture with Caden Durham, and I don't know if you saw this, with Caden Durham and Colin Simmons with one hand holding up L for LSU and then another one with the hook'em. And but anyway, signify future things to come. So anyway, Tark, I'll let you go and move on to the rest of the video. But anyway,
welcome.